There friends, Dave Paulides, CanAm Missing Project, copyrighted edition for our video channel. And Huck's going to be in the office for a while, here in the... See, what I do is, this is a little game we play here. It makes her work hard for this little treat, and it's a piece of liver, freeze-dried liver. It's really good for dogs. There's no bad side effects to it. Okay, so we're going to lay down. Go ahead. There you go. And Huck will be in here. Huck will be in here with us for a while, making sure that we're doing things right, since she is the executive producer of the series. So, and this will keep her, honest to gosh, this thing will keep her amused for hours, as long as she can't get it out. Once she gets it out, then, you know, the game's kind of over. But I put one on each end, so she'll be working hard for it. So anyhow, this is, watch out, doggy. Hey, sit, sit. That's a good girl. So this is a missing person segment. This is actually an amnesia segment. And I've stated before, fascinated by this. We found many interesting twists and turns to this series. Started off on the truckers having amnesia, and now we're on to people found with amnesia. You're going to see in this segment, and if you've been paying attention, Texas is kind of playing a key role in this. Well, how's that, Dave? Well, you're about to find out. There was a man named G.E. Riggan. He was 31 years old. He went missing October 6th, 1928 at 1 p.m. Now, missing 411, missing people. And the mystery is, how did they get from place to place if there is no linkage between those two locations and them? If they took a train or they drove a car, well, then that kind of explains it. Same as when, say, a hunter. Oh, she got one out of one end already. Good girl. Good girl. Oh, yeah. Here's chomping. Now she's got to go for the other end. Well, Rigan was married, had 4 children, and his residence is in a place called High Point, North Carolina. And he was one of these very reliable, very stable individuals. He had worked for a company called Sisseloff Ice and Coal Company, and he was a superintendent of the ice company. Been there 6 years. Well, on October 6, 1928, he was sitting in a restaurant in High Point, a diner, he said, having a sandwich and a soda. He finished it, paid his bill, walked outside. That's it. Nobody remembers seeing him. Nobody saw him anywhere. He dropped off the face of the earth, essentially. And again, that was October 6th, 1928. Now fast forward to November 19th, 1928. Austin, Texas. A police officer is going down the road and he sees a man laying unconscious on Colorado Street near downtown Austin. He gets there, he tries to revive the man. He can't. The man isn't intoxicated. He almost appears dead, but he could tell he's alive, so he calls for an ambulance. And the man is transported to Austin General Hospital in serious condition because they can't wake him up. He was described initially as being in a coma, but with no visible injuries. So 3 hours later, after he's been admitted to the hospital, this man that they picked up wakes up. And the first thing he does is he shouts something. He shouts, "Shut off the radio and turn on the ice machine." Hospital staff looks around. Can you imagine if some man was unconscious and that's the first thing he says when he wakes up? It's kind of pretty odd. Well, when he woke up, he says, "Where am I?" And they said, "Oh, you're at Austin General Hospital." "Austin what?" "Austin, Texas." He says, "Hey, don't lie to me like that. Really, where am I?" And he goes, "No, you're in Austin, Texas." Man doesn't believe it. So the staff nurse goes over and gets up a phone directory. Remember the old phone directories, real thick, and on the outside of the phone directory it'd say the city. It's at Austin, Texas. And then they brought him over a newspaper from Austin, Texas. He says, how did I get here? They asked him what his name was. He didn't know. He had no recollection of his name, where he lived, where he was from, his background. He had nothing. But he didn't also remember ever being in Austin. I've stated before that imagine if somehow you had the ability to shut off someone's memory. And some of you have said, well, GHB has that ability. Well, yeah, well, GHB wasn't around in 1928. And drugs don't have a finite end to them. Depending on the people, depending on the circumstances, drugs last longer in some people, shorter in others. No rhyme or reason, but they just do. But if somehow somebody had the ability to turn on and off your memory, what would be the reason for that? Would they not want you to remember certain aspects of what you just went through? But why? Why would they care? Well, because you would come back and tell somebody that you just experienced something otherworldly and they didn't want the other world to know? Maybe. But in this circumstance, the man's laying in the hospital. And as he starts to wake up, he starts to put things together and his memory slowly starts to come back. And with the help of the nurses there that took interest in him, they slowly started to piece together his identity. The ice machine statement, they keyed on that. Well, do you know a lot about ice? Yeah, I think I do. Did you work around ice? And slowly it started to come back. And they figured out where he was from, High Point, North Carolina. And then they figured out his name was G.E. Riggan, and he was 31 years old. Well, the hospital physicians were able to contact his employer, who in turn knew that his family had left town and his wife and kids were now living with his wife's dad. His wife's dad, yeah. The physicians said that they were positive this was a real amnesia case. They couldn't find a reason why he was unconscious, and they could find no other sustained injuries on the body. No, Huck just gave me the notice. You ready to go? That's it? Okay. There you go. Good job. And the doctors believed he had been without a memory since October 6th. What didn't come back to GE was where he had been since that date. He said he remembered walking out of that diner on October 6th. And he said once he walked outside, his memory went completely blank. Well, his business said that he suddenly disappeared on October 6th. And it was something that he had never done before. He'd never had problems. He was an extremely reliable employee. Now, here's a couple things I want you to think about. That really, when I looked on a map of this, I thought, wow. Do you believe in coincidences? Today's gonna push that limit. But he was found on Colorado Street. Well, Colorado Street in Austin is right next to the Colorado River that goes through the middle of Austin. Remember, I've told you all along that water is key here. Well, was that a hint that somebody left us because they left him on Colorado Street? Think about it. He was missing 44 days. How did he survive? Who fed him? Now, he disappeared from High Point, North Carolina. Right here. Here's Charlotte, High Point. He's found in Austin, Texas. Here's Corpus Christi. Here's Galveston, Dallas, Tyler, New Orleans. Kind of get the drift. Point to point, a little over 1,000 miles. These Texas cities are located very close to the Gulf of Mexico. And it just so happens that North Carolina is an Atlantic state. Borders the Atlantic. Just saying, folks, I don't think you can ignore this at this point. But what I want you to start paying attention to is how many people with amnesia end up waking up in Texas. Why is that? Many of you have asked me over the years, Dave, why don't you do more cases in Texas? There weren't that many. Okay, Huck, everyone hears you. Yeah, everyone hears you. There weren't that many cases in Texas to actually make a book. But Texas is quickly becoming a hub for amnesia cases, for people waking up there. Yeah. Again, name was G.E. Riggan, 31 years old. Right in the prime of life, he disappears. And just so you know, yeah, the hospital was able to contact his wife via telegram. And communication was, the hospital never went into great detail about those communications, but said that the wife was now corresponding with her husband. So that was good. The next case. Yeah, Texas case. Another one. Name was Frank Willis. Frank was 50 years old. Disappeared July 5th, 1971. Stop here for a second. Remember, if they, whoever they are, if whoever dumps a bunch of bodies in a state, all with the same profile, and they do it all within a short period of time, well, even the dumbest investigator in the world, or the dumbest investigative journalist, will be able to figure that out. Now, today they wouldn't, because there are no more investigative journalists, just about. There's very few. Back then, even they could figure it out. And there were some good ones. But Frank, he lived in Universal City, Texas. That was a suburb of San Antonio. He was formerly in the nursery business, and now he was writing a column for the Express News, and he was writing a column about gardening. He was a smart man, educated, successful, and took early retirement. One thing he liked to do is he liked the outdoors a lot. Specifically, he loved to fish on and near the Gulf. Well, on July 5th, 1971, this is Frank. It's nice to have a picture of somebody every once in a while that you can look at. He decided to go fishing. Again, something he did regularly. He rented a small boat, a skiff with an engine, near a place called Tin Can Reef outside of Rockport, Texas, right on the Gulf. Said he'd be out all day and bring it back. Well, late on that same day, somebody on shore found that same boat swamped on the breaker 3 miles north of the marina, there where he rented it. Inside the boat, the sheriff who was called found Frank's wallet, his hat, and his fishing gear. Okay, what do you make of that? You're the sheriff. Well, I can tell you flat out, fishing gear to a fisherman is important. It's really personal. You get to know it, you get to like it, you have a lot of memories with that pole and rod and reel. You just don't give that stuff up. And a man never leaves his wallet behind. You just don't ever do that. But there it was. Sheriff looks inside the wallet, says that the name, Frank Willis, figured out where the boat was owned and where it was rented from. And the sheriff, the Rockport sheriff, can only come to one conclusion. Frank must be out there in the water somewhere. What other conclusion could anybody come to? So the Rockport sheriff was taking a missing person report and then immediately called the U.S. Coast Guard that was right nearby. And he asked them to put a helicopter in the air to search for Frank. It was believed by the sheriff and by the owners that rented him the boat that he had to have gone overboard. It wasn't an extremely rough day, but things happen. So the helicopter was put up late that day, searched for a couple hours until it got dark, and then landed. July 6th, the next day, Frank had not been located. His family had not heard from him. The sheriff had contacted the family. They were quite worried, concerned. This is completely out of character for him. Well, that day, July 6th, they put the helicopter up again, and they also put out a Coast Guard cutter on the water. Because as the sheriff said, it's a certainty that Frank was in the water, probably drowned at this point, and they were doing a body recovery. Now, here is Corpus Christi. Here is Rockport, where the search is taking over. And the search was taking part in Aransas Bay in this area. Keep this in mind. We're going to talk about it more. Aransas Bay. Right on the other side of the jetty was the Gulf. Well, July 7th, the next day, 12 hours searching. This time the sheriff put out their Marine unit, along with the Coast Guard, cutter, and the helicopter. They thought about dragging the bay, but the bay's pretty deep, and they didn't have any idea on where he went overboard. They actually had patrol officers driving up and down the jetty and the land looking for a body to wash up. Yeah, they were looking for a body. Newspaper article said he was probably drowned, etc., etc. Now, what's impressive about this on the part of the sheriff, Rockport, is that these guys didn't give up. July 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th. They had units out looking for Frank nonstop, 12 hours a day. It was unbelievable. I can tell you that most recoveries like this, once they believe in their mind that the person's dead, maybe 4 or 5 days, and then they call it off. But the sheriff didn't call it off. They kept going. And they thought, well, based on the currents, that he might have gone down near Corpus Christi, or the winds also changed mid-pass, so maybe he went the other direction. They tried everything. They put out notifications to fishermen in big ships that were going through to keep their eyes open for a body on the water. There were flyers put up in the area. Frank's family was extremely distraught. Nothing like this had ever happened to him or them. They had no idea what to think. Now, pay close attention to what I'm going to lay out for you. July 14th, 9 days after Frank vanished. July 14th at 9 p.m., just about dark, a Corpus Christi police officer, remember? I showed you this. Corpus Christi, about 35 miles away from where Frank disappeared. Corpus Christi, a pretty big city. Corpus Christi police officer is driving along, and he sees a man sitting on the curb of a street with his head in his hands like this. And his feet were in the street. That's telling you something's wrong. So he pulls over at the corner of Water and Williams Street. I can't make this up, folks. I can't make it up. Water and Williams Street. Police officer approaches and asks the man if he's okay. And he says, no, I'm not. He says, I don't have any memory. And the police officer asks for his ID. He goes, I don't have any. Do you have any money? No. Do you know your name? No. Where are you from? I don't know. So the officer talks to him for several minutes on the street, trying to determine if he's intoxicated or under the influence. He's not. Asks him how long he's been here. He goes, I don't know. And the officer says, do you feel okay? And he goes, no, I don't feel good. Corpus Christi officer calls for an ambulance. And this man is transported to Memorial Hospital in Corpus Christi. Now this is where it gets complicated. Pay attention. That was on July 14th. Let's back up 4 days to July 10th, 4 days earlier. There's a dinner, like a monthly dinner, at the Rockport Sailing Club for members. One of the members is a Texas Department of Wildlife captain for the game wardens, having dinner with friends. And at his table is a fellow Rockport resident, Dr. J.W. Weidman, who's the director of the emergency room at Memorial Hospital. Well, this captain is telling the table about this 5-day search that's been going on for this missing fisherman, and how complicated the search has been, and how frustrating it's been, and how he's concerned about the family and how they can't find any answers, and he's afraid to cancel it because they might find something. And this major's name was Major Donald. He spent an hour explaining this 5-day search and its complexities to the table. Keep that in mind. So then we have July 14th, where this man's found on the street in Corpus Christi. July 15th. This is the 10th day of the search and rescue. Well, the major that was in charge of the search goes home for lunch. His wife says, as he walks in the door, honey, a Dr. Weidman called from Memorial Hospital. says he has an amnesia victim at his hospital, and he has a hunch that it may be your missing man. What? What? We've been looking out there and he's over here? All right. Well, Dr. Weidman said that the man was very polite and cooperative. And again, there's your man, Frank Willis. So the major calls Dr. Weidman. Weidman says the guy didn't know his name or why he was even in Corpus Christi. And he said the major wanted to know where he was at. And he said, well, there were no beds available in the hospital, but we kept him in a bed in the emergency room. He's still there. Well, the major said that the missing man, Frank, had a specific tattoo that the family identified on his back. And the doctor says, hold on, let me go see. Dr. Weidman comes back to the phone 10 minutes later and goes, we've got your man. The major said, I'm en route to the hospital. Major gets down to the hospital and he starts to question Frank. Frank stayed consistent in his statement. No idea who he was, where he was, etc., etc. And what's unusual about these amnesia cases is sometimes after a couple days, the memory comes back to people. It seems to come back faster in some than in others. And some people say that the memory gets blocked at a certain point and then it starts at another point. In Frank's case, he doesn't remember anything from anywhere. Well, the major contacted Frank's family and they came down to the hospital and they absolutely, positively identified Frank. And he stayed in the hospital a while longer and then went home. And there wasn't any other further follow-up articles about him. But do I believe that that was a real case? 1,000% it was a real case. Like I said, men don't leave their wallets in boats. You don't leave your wallet anywhere. Now, what about this case? First of all, if you've been following these amnesia cases, it's another one where they vanished on water. Come on. I told you all along, missing 411 cases deal with water. I explained in this book that water is the key. All of these cases, the men ended up in water. These are all next to water or on the water. Where was Frank for 9 days? Where was he? Nobody knows. Remember, he was presumed drowned. Now, remember some of those trucker stories? Remember 2 of them? They were drowned. They were in water. Do you start to see the similarities here in the overlap? I don't mean to beat a dead horse. Some people don't get it. Some people are still saying, oh, this is some crypto topic. I'm saying, what? Crypto topic? What are you saying? Come on. I really want you to come to your own conclusions. I've already kind of come to mine. If you watched the movie, Missing 411, the UFO Connection, you can see how we brought the linkage together. Now, I'm not somebody that makes outrageous claims that I can't back up, but I'm also not an idiot. When something stares me in the face, when I get some kind of download that says, Dave, you better follow this path. You're going to figure this out. We're figuring a path out together that has never been talked about before. And you're watching it as it's occurring and as we're laying it out. Now, You and I know that there's going to be 500 other YouTubers that are going to all of a sudden start talking about these cases like they found them. Yeah, good luck. But I appreciate your support. Now, several of you have told me that you've been unsubscribed to our channel. Several of you have told me that you're never notified when our videos come up. I'd like to know both. So in the comments section of this video, if you've recently been unsubscribed or you haven't been notified about our videos, put it down. I'm still sending these things to YouTube. And the person who represents us between us and YouTube is still sending these there. And they haven't said anything. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. Same thing I'm thinking. Well, we got to follow the protocol. But I send all this information to them. Now, our website to support us, to buy our books and videos, NA like North America, NABigfootsearch.com. Go there, go to the online store, and you'll find all these books, things. Don't buy my books and things and videos online. Amazon, there's some idiot out there that's charging $99 for my DVD. I charge $20. Other people charging $150 for my books on Amazon, $25 for me. So don't get waylaid into buying from them. You are appreciated. And I really like it that this is a sharp group of people. 99% of you get it. There's new people that come on board and all of a sudden they think they get it, but they have no idea. And I try to be patient with them because once they come on, they think they know everything right away. Complex issue. I mean, I've written 11 books about this, made 3 movies about it. I couldn't say it in one book and I couldn't say it in one movie. So if you can, please share this video on your social media. It would help us. If you like it, give it a thumbs up. And I'm going to go out and see what Huck's doing. And I hope you're done with your almond croissant, your bear claw, your sprinkle donut, whatever. Take care. Paulides out.